Hey guys, I hope you liked the little intro I put together. I wanted to put in more effort into these videos if I keep making them. Anyways, welcome to my Cadena comprehensive guide. If you may or may not know, this is my main. I'll link the doc below if you want to read, but I'll be breaking down the Cadena guide as a visual guide, as well as throw in my own tips and tricks. First, let's start off with the inner abilities. You 100% need the 20% cooldown skip, since you will be skipping most of your skills. Cadena's damage comes from comboing skills together, and the more you throw out, the more damage you do. And the next two are abnormal and boss damage. As for Cadena's link skill, you do more damage to enemies that are lower level than you and have more abnormal statuses on them. If you're lower level than the boss, then probably switch out of this. Something to note is you can't cooldown skip the terms and conditions, or the AB link skill. This is massive for Cadena because you are a bursty DPM class. The more cooldown skip and reduction, the better. The sources for cooldown skip is your inner abilities, as well as your Legion artifacts. And your cooldown reduction comes from your hat, as well as your Mercedes Legion. For the best slot link skills, it depends if you're soloing, bossing, or doing culvert. I won't break down all of that, but I'll go over my link skills and explain them. So we have Kana for more damage, Mage Link for damage and IED. This adds a status which I'll explain later in these skills. Lin for the boss damage, Demon Slayer for boss damage, Hybrid Logic for stats, because Cadena does use 3 stats, Judgment for crit damage, Motion Link skill, which is basically 16% boss damage, Arc Link for damage, Terms and Condition for burst, Thief's Cunning for more debuff. I've got to switch this one off, but anyways, Planet Battle or the Ilium Link, because we are always moving. And finally, Wild Rage. And for the fun part, let's break down the skills. And first drop, our first skill is Pursuit. This skill is basically a grappling hook, diagonally in an X pattern or left and right. Also with this skill, the longer you hold it down, the further it goes. You can also hook onto mobs or bosses with this skill. So you hook onto the boss, and you'll be transparent for a little bit, and you are actually in dark sight. Tap it again and you hook onto the boss. It also works for the ground too. If you're fast enough, you can up jump or flash jump too. This skill can also be used to hook on platforms. The next skill is Thrash. So it's a normal like whip attack. This is the skill you want to use, so your next summon skills will do more damage. If you see the description, skills used after this skill gain 10% FD. So this is why you want to use this skill with everything else. So our next skill is Scimitar. So Scimitar has 2 uses. On the ground, it's a rush skill. So you cannot go through things like the Will Tornadoes. In the air, it's a TP skill. So for example, how Thrash works is you can press Thrash and then Scimitar afterwards. So that Scimitar does get 10% FD. Also, if you look up in your top right bar, you can see how it like blips a little bit. So you see here. Normally it flickers. So that's when you kind of want to use your other skills. I'll explain more in the combo section. So as I said, this can go through certain objects. So this can go through certain objects like gloom balls. Even vehicle strings. And then we have our flash jump. Also, Scimitar is a super stance. In second job, we get an upgraded Thrash, so it has a further range. And our next summon skill is Claw. This is also a super stance skill, so you have to be in the air to use it. So ideally, you train this with other skills in the air. We unlock more later, but for now we can use something like Scimitar into Claw. Also, if you want to sweat, you could do Thrash first between both skills. So Thrash Scimitar, Thrash Claw. If it's too hard, just take out the Thrash. For learning, you could just press Scimitar and Claw. The further you stall out the Scimitar, the further you'll dash. If you use Scimitar and Claw right away, you won't move that much. That's probably a bad spot, but let me try over here. Next is Shuriken. So, I call this skill the Beyblade. This is part of our bread and butter. You throw it on a Beyblade, and don't detonate it. If you press the button again, you can detonate it manually. Like this. But you don't want to. More on that later. And then we get a booster skill. Next is Muscle Memory. Basically, it's a passive, but you gain stacks on each summon weapon. So summon weapon so far is Scimitar, Claw, and Shuriken. I'll go more over them later on. In third job, we get upgraded Thrash for even more range. And we get 3 more summon skills. The first one is Shotgun. This will knock you backwards, and it is also a super stance. You do more damage the closer you are to the enemy. So since this does fling you backwards, you are in the air. So you could combo Shotgun into Claw now. If it's too hard on the ground, you can do it in the air too. Personally, I don't thrash between these skills because for me it's kind of hard, and that's fine. You can also do Shotgun Scimitar as a combo. Or you could do like Shotgun Scimitar Claw. So that's kind of how you combo skills. You have to know how they work. But the basic concept is going forwards and backwards, or backwards and forwards. Our next skill is Daggers. So this skill you want to debuff on the boss. It gives a 30% ID debuff on the boss. It's our only debuff skill. So by itself, it just does that. In the air, it stalls you in a little bit. So now you can do cool things like Shotguns, Daggers, Claw. Or Shotgun, Dagger, Scimitar, Claw. So you're seeing how this is kind of like freestyle. You can kind of do like whatever you want to. Also for daggers, when you use it, you're in dark sight for a little bit. And our last summon skill for third job is decoy bomb. For the bombs, you're also in dark sight once they explode. The thing is, you have to hit an enemy or boss, and then you'll be in dark sight. Using it by itself won't do anything. So now you can do cool things, like one of my go-to combos is bombs into claw. So you see him going backwards and forwards. Or you can do cool fancy tricks like bombs, shotguns, scimitar, dagger, claw. You know, freestyle. You can play around with it, like bombs, shotgun. You get like so much distance backwards. And this passive skill is really important. So when the enemy is debuffed or has status, you get crit rate and crit damage. There's a better one in 4th job, which I'll get to later on. But this is why Cadena is kind of OP. And in 4th job, we get our final Thrash. And our second to last summon skill is Brick. So Brick brings you forward, and it explodes. You could cancel Brick with Pursuit, but if it doesn't explode, it won't do any damage. Also, if you hold up and press Brick, you get a bigger height. Firstly, what I do is shotgun into Brick. Or you could do like bombs into Brick. Again, the concept is backwards and forwards, or you could do forwards and backwards too. An example of like forward to backwards is like Brick into bomb. Or scimitar to shotgun. Firstly, I'll go backwards and forwards, but whatever you want to do. Also, Brick is a super stance. And our main bossing skill is Bat. So this is a 3-part skill. So 1, 2, 3. And it is a super stance. So our bread and butter is the Beyblade into Bat. I'll explain more about that later in 5th job, but that's pretty much what you always want to do. Our next skill is Rain of Chains. So this is like key down skill. You can hold it for 6 seconds, but the first 2 seconds are the iframe portion of it. It has a wide range and it can back mobs. You don't really use it for training, but it's kind of cool. And next is Chain Arts Beatdown. This is our class bind. Basically, when you bind the boss, you want to rotate through your summon skills, and it'll build up this like gauge. And the more it fills up, the more damage it does. So to recap, our summon skills are Scimitar, Claw, Shuriken, Shotgun, Daggers, Bomb, Brick, and Bat. And then we have our Maple War skill, our Will skill, and the final Muscle Memory skill. So with Muscle Memory, the more you combo, you get a small yellow shield. So you do want to rotate through skills because that reason too. So you're a bit tankier while you're like rotating skills and doing more damage. And in 4th job, we get Cheap Shot too. So Cheap Shot, you get 2 crit rate and 11 crit damage, up to 10 abnormal statuses on the enemy. And there's also a bleed chance. So the more statuses, the more damage you do. You should be quick capped, so quick damage is all we care about. I'm gonna go a little bit ahead, but things that give us free status is 1. The Mage Link. 2. Thief Link. 3. Daggers for the Terrified buff. 4. From Maelstrom, which is a 5th job. This slows down the enemy. 5. From the Bat, because when you use the Bat, it reduces the enemy's attack. It gives a confusion buff. And 6 is a 5th job, but it's Venom Burst. You don't use it per se, you just have it on just so it can get a poison debuff. So Cadena by itself, that's already like 60% crit damage. And you can get 4 more from your teammates. Before 5th job, let's talk about the hypers. Our next skill is Crush. This gives you max muscle memory stacks on hit. So normally you have to build up muscle memory by rotating through your skills. So all your 7 skills. But if you use this skill on an enemy or boss, you get the max stack. It's only 15 seconds. But all you have to do is hit Crush. And then I normally debuff with daggers. You can use any skill though. But then that's how you can easily get the 8 stacks. It looks like this. Pretty huge range. And then we have Shadow Dealer's Elixir. It's just the typical like damage buff. And next is Veteran Shadow Dealer. So basically this skill is like Shadow Partner. You don't see like a shadow behind you, but it just doubles your lines pretty much. And for the passives, you want these skills. So for 5th job, there's quite a bit. You basically want to level everything evenly, at least the, gray skills. But Cadena uses like literally everything, so it's pretty note heavy too. No particular order, but I'm just gonna go over the skills. First one is Void Strike. So this is our background change skill. You can also right click it to change the colors of the background. So it could be colors or grayscale. I have mine right clicked so it's locked because I want to see the colors. So the more you level this skill up, the longer it lasts and the sooner it comes back up. Also when you attack, they'll be change that attack with you. It's just like extra damage. It's good for mobbing too when you're training, because it goes through all the enemies it touches. The next skill is Maelstrom. So how you use Maelstrom is, you need to press Thrash, and then use this skill. So it's kind of like a 2-parter. This skill attacks the enemy and it slows him down. It ticks really fast, and then it also like slows down as it goes on. So you always want to keep applying this skill. Also for the cheap shot. So I can press Thrash and then use Maelstrom. And there's no cooldown. Next is Apocalypse Cannon. So this skill, it charges. Then once it's fully charged, it shoots. Or if it takes on the boss a certain amount of times, it'll shoot by itself. Same thing with Maelstrom. You want to use this whenever it's off cooldown. Next is Muscle Memory Finale. So this procs when you combo skills. But when I talked about the bread and butter skill, the shuriken to bat, this immediately procs it. It can also proc randomly when you're just comboing too. Next is Last Resort. I right click it so it goes to stage 2 immediately. If you know, you know, but it's a lot of damage, but you take more damage too. And our last skill is Might of Nova. It's just a free door. It has a long cooldown though. As for tri-nodes, you want daggers, scimitar, and shotgun. Bat, brick, thrash. And then it's just a double node. So crush and beat down. And there's some common stuff too, but everyone has these common skills. For 6th job, you know about the origin. It's one of the strongest origins. First mastery is Thrash, second is Muscle Memory. The third and fourth unlocks basically the other half of our Muscle Memory skills. The summon skills. Name of Void Strike, Cannon, Maelstrom, and Muscle Memory Finale. As for Hexa stats, you want Boss, Attack, and Luck. The attack should be the highest prio, followed by the boss and then luck. For the Hexa stat, you should probably work on this after your dash is around level 9. And my Legion artifact is pretty much max. But if yours isn't max, you want these stats. The next topic is WSE, or Weapon, Secondary, and Emblem. They're all pretty close to damage, but A10 is slightly better. The numbers meaning 8 attack, 1 boss, 0 IED. Cadena may be lacking some IED, but our daggers gives us 30% IED debuff on the boss. So around 93% is okay for solo bossing. But for party bossing, most likely other classes will have debuffs as well. If you're in a party with no IED debuffs, then you want around like 97% IED. And crit rate should not be an issue, but if it is, there's some ways you can get them. So I did mention you want a cooldown hat earlier. The busting slot is -4 and stat, followed by -4 seconds, and then -2 and 2 line stat, followed by 2 seconds. It's just so our skills could come up sooner. So for flaming, Cadena actually has 3 stats. So 1% all stats is roughly 10 to 11 stats for 1 all stat. Okay, so time for some homework. Let's practice some combos. There's infinite possibilities, and I'll go over some and show the skills on screen. It takes tons of practice, so don't get frustrated if you can't do it right away. Also to mention that you ideally want to thrash between attacks, again for the 10% FT. But I don't do it after every single attack, just because it's kind of hard for me for certain combos. You can get away without thrashing, but you should try and throw it in whenever you can. If you're having trouble with thrashing between skills, you could just skip the thrash part for now. And one last note is, you will never find 2 Cadenas that play the same exact way. And that's the beauty of the class. It's totally freestyle. You can play it however you want to. Especially with the cooldown skips, and knowing your actual class and knowing what skills does what. Whether it's Dark Sight, Super Stance, backwards, forwards. There's so many options. Anyways, here's some examples. There's so many combinations, but you get the gist. You just have to play around with it. But hopefully that gives you some example of like how the class plays. Also, Cadena has a huge hitbox, so you ideally want to stand not on the boss but next to it. There is a sweaty culvert rotation, but I don't follow the rotation. It is down in the dock, and I'll also link the video. And for bossing on Cadena, there's a lot of tips, which I'll go over some of them. So you can dark side these balls. And if you're stuck, just iframe it with Mikeychains. Also, don't forget your super stance skills. Remember, you can still dark side with dagger. For Pap, make use of Maelstrom and your cannon for range attacks. And again, don't forget to use your iframe if you need to. For Queen, again, just use Maelstrom and cannon. And don't forget you can hook on the boss too. Make use of it. Up here, it's pretty similar. Again, just always spam cannon and Maelstrom. And if you do too much damage, you can even use Mikeychains and iframe the hat. Or Bon, I mean, again, same thing with everything else. You could do some cool tricks to dodge the fireballs. For Vellum, since you press to summon him, I like to bait him out. So I summon, I do Maelstrom, cannon, and get ready to Mikeychains to iframe. And then you could just bind him, then do your burst. Lotus, you do have to kind of know your skills to go backwards or forwards. In P1, you definitely want to air stuff like this mechanic. Or you could just up jump. In P2 is basically the same, more or less. But when he does his push attack, you can super stance it. And you can dice at these things too. The falling debris. And P3 is same thing, super stance. You can air stall here if you can. And make use of your iframes too. And again, you can super stance some things. For Damien, there's nothing I can really talk about besides dark siding the falling balls. For Slime, you can grapple the platforms. That's pretty much it. And, you know, super stance. For Lucid, you definitely want to air stall here for the dragon. You don't really need to air stall, but it helps a lot. Especially when you don't have any iframes or, you know, a Jenny or curring. So here's a dragon. I did get hit, but you get the point. Or P1 will, I mean, especially you scimitar in the air to go through the tornadoes. You have to be almost like kissing the tornado to like go through it. You have to be like pretty close. And that's pretty much the only tip for P1. Personally, I like to hug onto will, so I can easily go backwards or forwards. And I do like using will to like easily hook on platforms. But you can easily tank the you can easily take the tornadoes if you just keep up your combos. Because remember, you do get a yellow shield when you rotate your combos. I don't have any tips for P2 and P3. That's just standard like will stuff. For Gloom, I did mention you can, you know, dark side the balls. So I dark side with daggers, the bomb, or shotgun. Nothing knocks you back with super stance is needed, so yeah, I mean I kind of just rotate with those skills. Nothing too fancy here. You can also dark side with Pursuit too. For Vihila, no tips, just using your skills to dodge strings. For Dark now, something like Will, I like to hug Dark now, so I can easily go forward or backwards. And you know, you can use him as a platform too to like get back to him. Because if you know Dark now mechanics, the further you are away, you know, the more likely he is to FMA. So you can escape and quickly go back to him with Pursuit. And you know, you can dark side these balls. So knockbacks, you can super sense those. And again, use your iframes if you're too far. You gotta time it though. I'm not gonna go through like every single boss, but I think you get the gist. So here's how I air stall. First I double jump up to get as much height as I can. And then I hook downwards. You can tell you're hooked when you are transparent. And then hook myself downwards. And at the same time I flash jump. I tend to flash jump backwards. But you can go forward too. And then what you do is you press shotgun. Because shotgun resets the pursuit cooldown. And then hook again. With the cooldown skip, you can stay longer in the air. Like this. Oh, another skip. But if you can't stay in the air too long, you can use other stuff to stall, like daggers, scimitar, even brick. That's pretty much how you air stall. To practice, I like going to dark now. Because there's no like sky here. Don't spam your skills, kinda like stall it. And let's say you really need the extra height, you can always just blink and cheat a little bit. And wait off the shotgun cooldown and try again. It takes a practice, but you get the hang of it. Also, I didn't go over the burst rotation. So what I normally do is I do Blade Strike to Shadow Dealer's Elixir, into Grandis, into Veteran's Shadow Dealer. Terms of Condition, Last Resort, and then Roar. I have a Roar 5, so I use it first, but normally it's Last Resort then Roar. And then just to be sure, I just debuff again, and then I Ori. After Ori, you just press your shuriken and back combo, your bread and butter. And then, you know, when there's 90 seconds left of the origin bind, you just bind normally with the beatdown. I don't try and stack this up. I always try to use the shuriken and back combo whenever it's up. But if you don't have that up, just, you know, use beatdown and just rotate whatever skills you have. As for training, I've always like lazy train. But there is a bunch of training areas and videos in the doc. So you can check those out. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and let me know what you think, as well as what I should do next. Peace.